was older than me, he'd remember things. I heard about them, but you were there sometimes when things happened, you know.
Well, I forget a lot.
Do you? Well, I'll remind you.
So yeah, when what years were you two born?
I was born in 1933, on April 14th.
How about you, Grandpa?
I was born in 1927, November the 11th.
Okay, so how old does that make each of you?
6 years difference. I'm 83.
Okay.
I'm 88.
How long has our family been in the Stouffville area?
My older brother was born at Markham before we moved to Stouffville.
In a house our great-granddad built, still there in Markham on Spring Street, in good shape. I believe Mother and Dad come up here and bought the farm over here in 1922. Dad bought the farm for $7,500 and 81 acres.
It's a log house, right?
It's in the planks like this
Okay.
in the walls up to the eaves troughs. Probably built 1860. One of the government soldiers lived there, and who kind of looked after that area as far as security and stuff.
6 of our family was born in that old house.
There were 10 of us, because Grandpa lived with us, Grandpa Wideman, for 11 years.
What would a normal morning look like for you?
Well, Mother usually made wheat porridge, and it was very good. And we had usually porridge. We didn't have cornflakes or shredded wheat very much,
No,
except when we went to Grandma and Grandpa's, and we had shredded wheat down there. But that's what I remember about it, and brown sugar. Sometimes we had apple butter and some nice scones or tea biscuits that Mom made.
I can remember being at the old stove. It was about so that wide, and a big oven above and oven below. We had no hydro, no refrigeration at all. The milk wasn't pasteurized, it was just straight from the cow. I remember one time my mother, she was baking something and she needs some milk. The cows were right not far from the house. Would you go out and get some milk from one of the cows? So I went out and I went to this Jersey cow, and she would stand still while I got milk for Mother.
I can recall that I was milking the Jersey cow when I was 5.
Yeah.
It was a quiet cow, and the Jerseys always had lots of cream in their milk. Anyway, I can remember shooting a little from the cow's udder and spraying it over, and the cat standing up on its hind legs and taking a drink.
What are some memories of like where you slept? What was that like when in your bedroom?
Well, it was the upper floor, and at that time it had 2 stairways.
So was there a stairway going up to the girls' bedroom and a stairway going up to the boys' bedroom?
There was, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And how many of you would have slept in there?
There was 4 of us boys, and the girls, there was 3 girls.
Did you have bunk beds?
We just had regular beds.
Yes, just regular beds, and some good woolen sheets, and it wasn't heated except for a pipe going through.
Yeah,
And you didn't spend long getting dressed in the morning.
there was no storm windows on the windows. It was just a single window. It was chilly.
One time there was a crack in the window by where you and Lloyd at the time slept. And there was it was a real storm and a little drift of snow across the bottom of the bed, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So it was cold enough that the snow didn't melt there very quickly, did it?
No.
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 We usually didn't read a lot or anything in bed, did we?
No. We had a lamp up there, and with the coil on and
We'd take kind of turns blowing it out, didn't we? And
I
then
think-
run for the
yes,
bed.
I would think so. Yeah. One time the wick went down into the oil and it was burning. I just threw it out the window.
Do you remember that too?
Yes, I do. I don't.
I can remember when the snow was deep and Mother would say, we're going to church. And the 7 of us and Mother my dad wasn't going to church then, but we would all walk out to the church on this cold wintry morning, and that's how we got to church.
How long would the walk take you?
Well, it was out across from Summit View School where the church was then, so it was quite a walk.
I remember one thing that happened. For 3 days and 3 nights, it stormed. It's the most snow that I've ever seen around here. And this road out here was closed for 7 days. And we had to get a bulldozer here over at the top of the hill here to clean it away. When the bulldozers cleaned it, we crawled on the way home from school under the telephone wires.
The snow was so deep that they had to keep the steam engine fired up because they didn't want it to freeze, but they done a lot of shoveling to remove the snow.
Those were the days when the men didn't have to go to fitness in the evening. Our personalities in the family, maybe because what each one had been through, were rather different. I was closer to Grant and Carl and Jean. The others were all older. Our sister Jean, she worked at the Dominion store, and they gave her a little envelope with cash in it. Probably at the time it had $20-some in it. And she came home, had a terrible cold, pulled the lid off the stove, and instead of throwing her Kleenex in, she threw her pay in, and the flames were coming up. I think she tried to make a grab for it, but the fire just caught right into the envelope. And Jean took a very philosophical look at it and said, well, that's gone. And what'd she say? It's just money or something. And we thought, oh, that's terrible. Because being younger, we thought a lot of money there, you know. And then Jean went down and worked for Dr. Button, sort of as a a maid caring for the kids. And
O'Brien Avenue.
yeah, and she worked there quite a while, didn't she?
Yes.
They thought a lot of Jean, and she loved working there.
My sister Grace worked for quite a few years at the Briar Bush Hospital with other number of girls too.
I can remember my sister Grace. She was very close with her money. But if I needed a loan or something, I could, at the time, get it from my sister Jean. I couldn't get a dime from Grace, but I could get $100 from Jean and pay her back. But that was the difference. Lloyd was quite thrifty. And if you asked him for something, he wanted to know why you needed it, and you kind of got a bit of a set down. Do you really need this?
Yeah.
Lloyd, of course, and when the war was on, Lloyd went as a conscientious objector. I didn't mind him taking that view, because I would have taken close to the same, or become a medic or something like that. He and I sometimes would disagree on something of theology or something of, we get over that. And in the last while, I was taking him to the hospital now and then, or things he needed to do. I think we became closer in that last year, but he was so much older than me that when I was born, he was 12, you see. Now Carl, he was always very good. I've been very close to him. And a good brother, you are.
Well, we're different, but we're brothers.
Yeah. I talk more.
Well,
And you listen.
well,
I have a lot of memories of good things and some things that were rather sad. Grandpa lived with us for 11 years, and then at the last he wasn't well, and he did go into a coma. He was in the far bedroom. He lasted about 6 or 7 days, and then all at once Mother said to me, Pa died. She called him maybe Pa. Dad did too. Pa died. Would you go and tell your dad? Well, Dad was in the back field by the bush. So I ran back. I was 14. And I told him, Grandpa just died. And, okay, Dad said. And he was kind of unhitching the horses, and he didn't say anything to me that I recall. Just put his head down. And anyway, that's when Grandpa passed away. Anyway, those are things you remember, but we all have a time to, the Lord seems to know when we're going to go, so.
When you would go to school, like, what would the classroom look like?
2 classes in a room, so approximately 20 in each class, so it was quite a few people.
Toilets were outside. We had, reading, writing, arithmetic. We had a science class.
We had a wood room where once a week we would go in and one particular time and working on a wheelbarrow, and later on my brother Lloyd used the wheelbarrow at his farm.
They had a shop for the boys and more of a health class for the girls to teach them a lot about, probably about the girls' bodies, and teaching them to bake and do things like that, wasn't there? I don't know. I was never in there to make sure what they taught. But usually we had a pretty good time, and kids got along quite well. You know, they'd have kind of a wrestle now and then.
Did you ever get in trouble at school?
I did a time or two. It wasn't so much in public school, a little bit in grade 6. Just kind of, drawing attention to yourself a bit then. And then in grade 9, some of us sat at the back, and for a while we didn't learn much French. We said, what? This isn't any use to us. We respected the teachers and never ever said what kids say to the teachers today, and teachers can't touch them. Then though, they would they could grab you and shake you a bit.
Our teacher she had quite a class, and she said, now, anyone who asked a question without first holding up their hand, they would get the strap. And one of my friends, Ted Berry, he held up his hand and he said to the teacher, I have no so-and-so book. And I said, I have one. And the teacher said, okay, Carl, you come up. So I went up to the front of the class and I got the strap right in front of the 40 of them for saying I have one.
Just for offering your book to another student?
You know, I was willing to give up my book, but I got the strap for it.
Wow.
Or I remember a mouse was out by the fountain, and about 12 of us, mostly boys, I think, ran out to see this mouse. And when we come back, we got a whack in each hand from the teacher for all hidden out there. We all lined up. The odd person, if he was a bit of a tough guy or wanted to act tough, he'd pull his hand away. And the teacher would whack his leg and with the strap. And it was a big leather one. But mostly it wasn't, I wouldn't say it was used that much, would you?
No.
Were you involved in sports then, or?
We went home to do chores on the farm. That's one thing about us. So we didn't get involved as much as the town lads would in hockey and all that. But at school we'd play baseball and we'd go skating and things like that, but we never got really into to hockey or baseball teams like some of them did. Organized, did we?
No.
No, most. Mother especially wasn't too much for it. She said you'll just get hurt, and she didn't want us to get hurt, so she was.
Where was the Stouffville Bakery?
Just sitting back a little. If you go into the old Care and Share place, or just come this way about 50 feet, and you can go by the back of it on the street right behind, can't you?
Yes.
And back in there was the Stouffville Bakery. Lloyd started to work for the bakery first, and he worked there for about 6 years. And the bakery then, Carl started to work at the bakery.
Oh yes, I was working for a number of years.
Okay.
Then you come on.
I started to work there when I was 17. We both had big routes through the country. I was down toward Markham and out toward Brome. You were the other way, weren't you, Morris?
Yes.
But I went up into Whitchurch.
The town of Stouffville wasn't like it is now today, but
And I think we did very well, didn't we?
oh yeah.
We got to know a lot of people, and I still see people and they say, it's Stu the baker. But I don't know them. You know, I was 20 then, and now I'm over 80, and they were just 10 or so.
How often would you make deliveries?
We started it twice a week. We'd go to one place Tuesday and Friday, another Monday and Thursday, and then third one Wednesday and Saturday. But then they took one route away from us, which we didn't like, and we tried to go 3 times a week. Of course, a person took a loaf of bread and didn't eat much, did they?
No.
So we didn't appreciate that very much.
Well, we got 20%, I think 20 cents on a dollar.
Mm-hmm.
That what we sold, they give us 20%.
Oh, so you were working off of commission. You didn't have an hourly wage.
No.
No.
And I worked there about 18 years, and then I worked at the hydro for 20 years. I used to go with Dad on a Saturday when I was going to high school, and he bought bush lots, so we'd leave Saturday morning and probably not get home till midnight, but we'd cut down trees and cut them up for logs. And I remember we had this one load of oak logs, and he come back from Ratcliffe's, and he said, I got $169 for those oak logs. And that seemed a lot of money to Dad at the time.
Yeah, it would. We had 4 and 5 horses at a time, using the horses because at that time we didn't have a tractor. I can remember of being 12, 13 years of age and driving 4 and 5 horses abreast on a 2 for a plow. When Edna was, before she was married, she was at home. I didn't have a watch, so I'd be way back in the field working. When it was time to come for noon meal, she would hang a big white cloth out of the upstairs of the house window, and then when I seen that cloth come out, that white cloth, I would be way 2 or 3 fields back. I knew it was time to quit, and the horses were always, they'd step up their speed when they were heading for the barn. They were always glad to get back to the barn, have a drink at the creek, and go into the barn.
Did either of you have a favorite horse?
Well, white-colored horse, Teddy, and Stuart had a dark brown horse, and that horse's name was
Queen.
Queen, yes, Queen. Oh. And
Did you get to name the horses yourself?
When Dad bought them, I guess they had that name, did they?
yeah, they had that name.
Were finances a stressful thing for your dad?
Yes, and I think that's maybe one of the reasons why he didn't go to church much then. He maybe would go out when there were special speaker meetings, but he didn't go to church because I think he was a bit discouraged. He never could get really ahead. Anything he made from the pigs or beef would go to pay the the interest on the money.
So he owed a lot to the banks.
Pardon?
He owed a lot to the bank?
No, he didn't. He had a loan from one wealthy guy who gave Dad and Mother and Grandpa the money to buy the farm. Grandpa then left and went to another place, but he paid him about 5% back then, but it seemed to take quite a bit. That was 5% of $7,500, and that come up every year, and that always took its toll, didn't it?
Yeah.
And he got discouraged because he had been on a better farm, and he got discouraged that he left that farm. I don't think, well, he didn't own it, but they made well there, didn't they?
Yeah.
So why did he move from the farm in Markham to Stouffville?
I guess because he wanted something of his own. And his father, John Wideman, went in, and just Dad and John's name, Grandpa, were on the deed. And then not too long after, John went up to Uxbridge and bought a place up there, didn't he?
Yeah.
And 2,500 of his money went out, and Dad had to take over that. And then it was in Mother and Dad's name. But that was hard with 7 kids, Mom and Dad, and clothes for everybody, although we all started working out fairly young. But it was hard. I think back, and the things that we enjoy, a lot of those things, it was just work 7 days a week, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Did you take Sundays off, or would you work on Sundays?
No, we didn't work Sundays. We, other than doing the chores in the summer and that, we never did any work in the fields. Hardly anybody would then, did they?
No.
It was very rare.
No.
Yeah.
That's right.
The 30s were tough. Depression had set in, and men used to come in to Dad and say, "We'll work for you for 50 cents a day in our board." And Dad said, "I can't afford it." Dad got discouraged over the years because he never paid anything, but tried to. He paid the interest, 5%, but he never got a cent paid until he sold the house and farm, 81 acres, for $25,000. And then 9 months ago, 4 acres out of the 81 and the old house sold for $700,000 plus. I think of my mom and dad and how hard they worked all those years. And I don't know whether they got any further than Toronto and Niagara Falls. Yeah, we had quite the experiences, really, in being on the farm. It's fortunate none of us got hurt, because we did get in some ridiculous positions at times, didn't we?
Yeah.
But
Yeah, when I was a little boy, 2.5 years of age, I tipped up a glass or a bottle of coal oil and drank. Mother, she called my dad. He was working with the horses, and my great Aunt Margaret was there, and I was turning blue. And Mother said, "You hold on." Oh, my aunt said, "He'll die in my arms." And they hitched up a horse to a buggy and drove to Stouffville. I think it was Dr. Sangster, doctor at that time. Well, he said the other one he had to deal with died in a few hours. All we can give him is try and get some strong tea down.
I think you drank milk too, all you could, didn't you?
Possible. But the Lord sure took care of me and brought me back to healthy again.
I was out skating on the flat where the subdivision is across the road here. Well, I come in all wet, and I went behind the stove and got up on the wood box, which was that high. We kept wood in it. And I took off, nobody was around, I took off everything because I was soaking wet. And I slipped off the wood box and got between the hot stove and the wood box. Well, I think for 10 or 15 years it was a scar along there, but it's pretty well left me now.
I can remember not far from our old farm and on the Stouffville Road. I was riding a horse and I could almost see my house, and my one foot come out of the saddle and the other foot I was held in, and the horse was dragging me along on my shoulder, and some dear man down the road seen what was happening, and he got out of his old car and came and caught the horse and stopped the horse and got my foot out of the stirrup. If I would have realized at the time, I think if I would have said, "Whoa," that horse would have stopped, and I couldn't think of what to say. But it all turned out for the best.
We had some close calls with horses. Grant went into town to get Florence Stewart.
Oh, yeah, and he had Teddy, the light-colored horse, I think it was Teddy,
Mm-hmm.
and he had him, and the steam engine come in, and the horse got so scared of the steam engine coming in and not being that close before, it broke loose the rope and headed over home with the I think it was a buggy, or maybe it was a cutter. Anyway, it got home, scraped the car in the way, but
Did it scrape more than one?
well, I don't know. Bruce Winterstein's car, the insurance paid it, and the horse got home anyway after pulling away from the station.
Grant and I were drawing in hay. I was up and loading just loose hay. It's not very easy to load. It's not like bales. I don't know whether it was a nest of bees or what, but the horses started to run. Horses' ears down, that's how they went when they would run away. Grant was driving, I was sitting back on the load, and he lost one line. And he hollered back to me, "Jump." And I slid off, and Grant slid off. The horses, I think, got out. They run into a tree that was branched out, and they got the tongue stuck in the tree.
Were you hurt?
No, we weren't hurt at all. And fortunate, we were kind of used to the farm, so we knew to get out of there and be careful as you slid off you didn't get down under a wheel. Our brother Grant got in quite an accident. Grant was riding his bike up ahead of us, and he was riding a little ways from the curb, maybe 8 feet, and a fellow, he came along and he thought, well, Grant's far enough over, I'll pass him. Well, he hit Grant on the bike. We got there, Grant was right under the car, wound up in the bike, wasn't he?
Yeah.
This was an old touring car, and they were higher then, weren't they?
Possible.
Yeah.
Yes.
You were behind on a buggy and a horse, weren't you?
Yeah.
And I was ahead walking. And do you know, to thank the Lord, when we got Grant out, I don't know if there was a scratch, was there?
No.
Bike
No.
was kind of twisted. Well, Grant worked there for Ratcliffe's mill when he was 17 for a little over a year.
Possible. Yes.
And he reached down under a saw, come on here, to pull a bushel of sawdust out of the way, and it ripped his arm. I think he was in the hospital for 6 weeks, and they wondered at first if they could save his arm, but they did. But after Grant had this arm accident at Ratcliffe's mill, he stopped there and became an apprentice with Jake Smith in Stouffville, who was a jeweler, and he learned how to repair watches, and then he had a jewelry store for 30 years, 30 years in Markham. Had one in Uxbridge for a bit too, didn't he?
Yeah, 2 of them.
But he seemed to do very well at that. Well, another story, if you want one, I had taken Barbara out on a date. It was about midnight, and I came home, and I took my foot at the screen door of our kitchen, and I pushed the cat aside. It was sitting by the screen door. Well, to my surprise, it was a skunk. I got sprayed, and my hair was wet. I wasn't sick, but I hit the door so hard it broke the latch off, and Dad come running out. He said, "It's in the house, it's in the house." Well, I was a skunk.
Yeah.
But
By then.
that next day was Sunday, and we're sitting in the church, and I got hot, and the smell of the skunk started to come out. Well, there was a lovely plush lady and her husband sitting beside me, and she said her husband's name was Guy. She said, "Guy, close the window. There's a skunk out there." Well, Barbara knew who the skunk was too, and the hotter I got, the more the skunk. But I soon got out of the church, or I didn't want to. But whenever I got hot, I bathed in everything the neighbors said bathe in. Everything you could think of, but it took about 3 weeks. Barbara said she could still smell it in my hair.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, like, when you first started dating, what would that have been like?
I told my friend, we were down at the old skating arena. Now, it didn't have artificial ice. It was just frozen when the weather was cold. And I said to Clayton, "I'm going to ask my friend Erla if I could walk her home tonight." And I didn't know, but he went and told my girlfriend Erla that I was going to walk her home, and it all happened, and it all filled in very good at that time, and we eventually got married at the 1903 Mennonite Church in 1949.
I recall something about you and Erla, and that's when the youth had a hayride. When you were driving the tractor and we were back in the wagon, all of us as youth noticed that Erla was up in the tractor with you.
Yeah, she was standing on the crossbar where the tongue was, and it happened to be that she come up there.
And I remember it occurred to all of us, hey, Carl likes Erla and Erla likes Carl. And she was talking to you there.
Would Grandma have? Did you ask Grandma to come up to the tractor with you, or did she kind of go by herself?
No, I think she come up by herself. Yes.
That was a good sign. She come up by herself, you see.
Yeah.
A little later on, Carl, you took me aside and you said, "Stuart, let me explain to you what romance is." Well, I was about 16 and he was 22 or so. Would that be?
Yes.
And I knew a little bit about romance, but he was filling me in on some corners there. You remember that?
Well, it's so long ago.
Yes.
So how long would it have been after you walked Grandma home to when you got married?
it could have been a number of months.
How about you, Uncle Stuart? When did you
Well,
first meet Barb?
I knew Barbara in high school. Barbara went through the 8 grades in 6 years. I didn't have that problem, but I first sent her a Valentine's card when she was 14, and after that we started to see each other. The first was sitting together in Youth for Christ, and then when her parents went north to the people that owned the hunting camp, I'd go along with them. So we went together 6 years, and then when she was 20, I was 23. We got married in the little church right just west of Ringwood, about 6 houses, and we had about 140 guests. How we ever got them in that basement, it was crowded.
What's the thing that you've noticed changed the most since your childhood?
We got hydro in when I was 12, and we didn't have any TV. Some planes were going over, but not jets. You move around in a warm car in the winter, where our car usually, sometimes the heater didn't work that great.
I can remember Dad in the winter time putting water into the radiator because he didn't have money to pay for the liquid that wouldn't freeze. So when he'd leave, he'd fill the car radiator with water, and when he'd come back, he'd drain it out in the winter time.
Be a different world. I remember when I was 10, going up to Bethesda store. Dad had a mail route for about 12 years, and in the summer I used to go with him. And we got at Bethesda store, and there they had a big gas pump, and we got the gas for 17 cents a gallon. I can remember that, and we took the front seat of the Model T out, and the gas tank was under the seat.
Yeah.
I guess if things went wrong, you have an ejection seat there. What do you think?
If you were ever given a chance, would you go in a car that could drive itself?
I suppose I would, but as long as I could be there to take over if the computer stopped working or whatever. And seems strange. It seems so strange that at first, your question at first makes you think, would I really? And but I suppose a lot of the highways will maybe change, and we won't have, with about 3 or 4 feet between us, cars going both ways. You'll be going one way, which wouldn't be so bad. Little things that your elders tell you that could be dangerous or could be bad for you in the future. There's a lot of experience from people that could save, I think, probably if I would have listened more. And I think Mom and Dad were quite busy at the time, didn't have a lot to mention to us, did they? No.
Okay, so what is it that you would want us to know?
I suppose the Christian faith would be one thing you would share, and you get into situations where you either say too much or what, and the Apostle James says, listen much, speak little, and don't get angry. But good advice. You do that.
Well.
What advice might you give, Grandpa?
Well, I would say, as Stuart mentioned, seek the Lord while you have time and opportunity. The Lord loves you. He's just waiting for you to clean up after you come to the Savior, and just come as you are. That's what I would say. Well, my hearing isn't good and my eyesight isn't good, but I'm thankful for what I do have.
Mm-hmm.
There's a peacock on your back porch right now.
Yeah, I know. He comes around. Do you want to take pictures?
Yeah, maybe I should just take a quick picture.
Yeah, we have big birds here.